They said Earth was lost. Burned out. Swallowed by its own sun. But not before one final shuttle left orbit, carrying a single human, Seren Vale, the last woman from a dying world. She didn't ask to be the last. She didn't ask to carry the weight of a species. And she sure as hell didn't ask to be the most wanted being in the galaxy. The shuttle landed on a neutral trade station orbiting the twin moons of Cytherian 9. Alone, disoriented, Seren stepped out into the pulse and buzz of 100 alien languages. She wore the last remnants of Earth's culture, torn cargo pants, a leather jacket with her family's crest, and a silver locket that held everything she had left, a hologram of Earth before the flames. No sooner had her boots touched the metal floor than the whispers began. Some stared with curiosity. Others, with hunger. The last human woman wasn't just rare. She was priceless. Word spread fast. Traders offered fortunes for a glimpse. Scientists proposed genetic studies, offering to house her in luxury. But there were darker offers. Much darker. Black market slavers spoke in hushed tones. Royal houses saw her as a trophy, a symbol to mount beside their conquests. And then there were the collectors, the ones who preserved rare species, dead or alive. Seren had no intention of becoming anyone's property. She found temporary refuge in a rundown maintenance bay owned by a crusty old vendor named Noxo. He was half metal, half flesh, all sarcasm. He let her stay, not out of kindness, but because she reminded him of someone he once knew, a human engineer who fixed his voice box 100 years ago. "You breathe too loud," he grumbled as she tried to sleep behind crates. "Your kind always did." She didn't argue. Sleep never came easy. Dreams were full of fire. Of screams. Of the last day on Earth when her father pushed her into the shuttle and sealed the door with shaking hands. 3 days later, bounty posters started popping up. Holographic images of her face rotated in bars, trade halls, and even in the sanitation corridors. The reward was astronomical, enough to buy a moon. And behind the bounty was the emblem of the Virex Dominion. The Virex didn't want her for peace or science. They wanted breeding rights. To create a hybrid species, humanoid in form, loyal to the Dominion, and capable of surviving on death worlds. Seren was to be the seed. And so she ran. She learned quickly. Changed her appearance. Cut her hair. Burned her jacket. Buried the locket in a crate beneath Noxo's stall. She stowed away on a cargo freighter headed to the Drift, the outer sectors of the galaxy where law was more suggestion than rule. There, things were different. The Drift didn't care where you came from. It only cared what you could offer. Seren became a shadow. A mechanic. A salvager. She learned to talk like them, move like them. She carried a plasma cutter and learned to fight. But the hunters didn't stop. On the fractured mining world of Varnak 3, she barely escaped when a band of mercenaries cornered her in a refinery shaft. She dropped 2 of them with improvised explosives. The third she burned with coolant steam. After that, the bounty doubled. Word reached her again, this time, from a pirate lord named Cray Tolan. He didn't want her for profit. He wanted to hide her. Cray had a rule, never bow to empires. He respected survival. "You got fire in you, girl," he said, tossing her a vibroblade. "Might be the last ember of your kind. Might be what the galaxy needs." She didn't trust him. But she accepted the blade. With Cray's crew, she moved through the shadow lanes of space, hitting Dominion supply lines, freeing slave ships, and whispering rebellion into the ears of the oppressed. She became more than a myth, she became a problem. The last human wasn't just surviving. She was fighting back. But for every friend gained, she lost 10. The Dominion's reach grew longer. Smarter. They sent inquisitors, psychic hunters that could track her by emotion alone. The worst came on Illith Prime. Cray's base was compromised. Seren had just returned from a mission when the alarms sounded. Energy beams tore through the hangar. Bodies fell. Cray was shot twice but kept firing until his arm gave out. "Go," he roared as the ceiling collapsed. She hesitated. One heartbeat too long. Then she ran. She barely made it out on a stolen scout ship, her hand wrapped around the vibroblade Cray gave her. Behind her, the the base lit up in a silent bloom of white and orange, consumed by Dominion fire. Alone again. But no longer the same woman who had stepped off the shuttle weeks ago. Now she knew how to kill, how to survive, and how to stay hidden. But the bounty still grew. The galaxy watched. And somewhere, deep in the Dominion capital, a plan was forming. They wouldn't just hunt her. They'd bait her. Lure her in. Use something she couldn't ignore. And they knew just what that was. The locket. The one she left behind. The locket was supposed to be safe. Buried beneath crates, hidden in the grease-stained belly of Noxo's market stall. Seren had left it behind on purpose. Too sentimental. Too dangerous. But now, a transmission echoed across the outer channels, illegally boosted, clear as a bell. Her father's voice. Seren. If you're out there, they have it. Don't let them use it. Don't come back. A pause. Then static. Then the image, a flickering projection of the silver locket, dangling in the air like bait on a hook. She froze. That voice hadn't echoed in her ears since Earth died. And now it was being used like a trap. The Dominion had found Noxo. Found the locket. And either tortured him until he gave it up, or worse. Seren's blood ran cold. She spent the next 12 hours off-grid, slicing into Dominion comms, tracing the signal's origin. The trail led to a mid-tier pleasure station called Avron's Kiss, orbiting the red dwarf of Siccar V. Not exactly Dominion territory. More like neutral ground with bad lighting, worse drinks, and too many secrets. She docked under an alias. Walked in wearing a synth mask and a heavy cowl. The place smelled like sour liquor and neon smoke. Music throbbed in the walls. Aliens of every kind writhed in rhythm. But none of it mattered. Her eyes were locked on the high chamber, where Dominion officers were known to conduct dirty trades. Inside, she found him. Not her father, of course not. But the Inquisitor. Tall, pale, wearing a memory mask that flickered her father's face in perfect replication. The locket sat in his hand. You've come far, human, he said, voice a twisted echo. But you've made it easy for us. She didn't reply. Just flicked her wrist. The flash bomb hit the room with a silent pulse, blinding every eye but hers. The visor she wore adjusted instantly. She was on him in seconds, blade to throat, other hand reaching for the locket. But it was a projection. A second too late, and the real Inquisitor stepped from the shadows, stabbing a neural dart into her spine. Pain lanced down her back. Limbs locked. She fell, twitching. Predictable, he said, lifting her by the collar. You still care. That's your flaw. When she woke, she was caged. Not just physically. Psychically. The Dominion had her aboard a cruiser, the *Virex Ascendant *, deep in warp space, and they had tech she'd never seen before. Fields that silenced thought. Rooms that distorted memory. They weren't just holding her, they were erasing her. But Seren Vale was stubborn. Pain didn't break her. Isolation didn't bend her. Instead, she listened. She learned. Through faint echoes and overheard whispers, she pieced it together. The Dominion wasn't planning to breed her. Not anymore. They'd changed the plan. Now they were building a replica of false Seren, grown from her DNA, conditioned to be loyal. A puppet. One they'd unleash as a symbol of peace. A manufactured icon to rally the neutral worlds into Dominion control. Seren's face, Seren's name, but not her mind. That couldn't happen. So she waited. The ship passed through a gravity well anomaly. For 63 seconds, the psychic fields flickered. Enough to regain a sliver of control. Enough to start her plan. She began small. Breathing techniques to slow her pulse. Muscle twitch tests to map the effects of the neural inhibitor. Timing the guards. Counting footsteps. Whispering memories to herself so they wouldn't fade. And then, on day 13, her chance came. An explosion rocked the ship. Not her doing. Someone else. A pirate ambush? No, too coordinated. Something internal. Her cell opened. A figure in black entered, visor down, hands blooded. He pulled the dart from her spine, tossed her a stim injector. Name's Jalen, he said. Kray's last order was to find you. I'm here to finish it. Seren's limbs were still shaky, but she rose. Injected the stim. Fire raced through her veins. Control returned. How'd you get in? She rasped. I didn't. I was already here. Been in deep cover for 6 months. Turns out the Dominion has more cracks than they'd like to admit. Together, they fought their way through the ship. Jalen was fast, enhanced. Maybe not fully human. But he moved like one. Thought like one. They reached the genetics bay. And what Seren saw stopped her cold. Rows of vats. Hundreds. Each one growing a copy. Her face. Her body. Her DNA. All replicated with chilling precision. They were going to pick the most obedient one, Jalen said. Let the rest burn. Seren didn't hesitate. She set the charges herself. They ran for the hangar as alarms blared. Fire curled down the corridor behind them. One of the clones, barely formed, reached out from its vat as it boiled. For a moment, Seren hesitated. But then she remembered what it really was. A weapon. She didn't look back. They escaped in a stolen interceptor. The ascendant broke apart behind them, consumed in a chain reaction of gene fuel and overloading psychic dampeners. The galaxy would think she died that day. The Dominion would think they'd failed. And Seren Vale? She'd vanished again. But she was no longer hiding. Now she had a target. And she had Jalen. And together, they were going to tear the Dominion apart, one lie at a time. The Dominion believed Seren Vale was dead. Her clone factory, vaporized. The real woman, lost in the blaze. And for a while, that lie worked. It gave her room to breathe. Room to plan. She and Jalen drifted through the nebula verge under a dead registry, bouncing between forgotten systems, forging connections with outcasts, scavengers, and old enemies of the Dominion. They weren't hiding. They were recruiting. Seren called them the Hollow Suns. They weren't an army. Not yet. More like scattered embers, smugglers, engineers, ex-royals, AIS disconnected from their home cores. But they had one thing in common, every one of them had bled because of the Dominion. You're not just the last human, said Tyvek, a one-eyed Falari who once served as a Dominion enforcer. You're the ghost they can't kill. That scares M. You scare M. It wasn't about being human anymore. It was about being a symbol. Jalen handled logistics, his precision made him lethal in battle, but invaluable when it came to network building. He was everywhere at once, coordinating fuel drops, hacking old Dominion protocols, blackmailing corrupt station wardens. Seren often caught him staring at the stars, like he was searching for something he'd lost long ago. You ever wonder, she asked one night, their ship adrift above a frozen moon, what it means to survive when you're not supposed to? He didn't answer right away. I wonder if surviving is enough. By the third cycle, the Hollow Suns had grown. Enough to pull off their first true strike. Their target, a mobile relay station orbiting the gas giant Eldraxis, a Dominion propaganda hub. From there, they broadcast across 6 systems, controlling the narrative. Seren wanted to show them they weren't in control anymore. They hit at dusk. Under cover of a solar flare, a small team infiltrated the station through maintenance vents. Seren led from the front. No holograms. No disguises. Just her blade, and her fury. She carved through Dominion guards with surgical speed, disabling communications as Jalen uploaded a virus to the core AI. Within minutes, the Dominion's message feed warped. The usual anthem of glory and loyalty replaced by a new image, Seren, standing among the flames of their clone facility. You can lie to the galaxy, her voice said, calm and cold, but you can't lie to me. I'm not your weapon. I'm not your symbol. I'm your reckoning. The feed looped for hours before blackout protocols kicked in. But the damage was done. Seren Vale was alive. And every faction, from slaver lords to outer colonies, started watching again. Some wanted her dead. Others wanted to join her. But in the shadows, the Dominion didn't panic. They adapted. Grand Marshal Geron, the man responsible for the Human Project, took command of the hunt. Cold, efficient, obsessed with control. He issued a single directive. Capture is no longer the objective. Destroy her. The bounty tripled overnight. The Hollow Suns moved fast, jumping across sectors, scattering their signatures, deleting their own logs. But still the net closed. Then came the ambush at Reno's Drift. They were resupplying, barely a skeleton crew on board, when the Dominion sent stealth interceptors laced with nullfield emitters. Cloaked ships tore through the sky like knives, cutting them off from hyperspace. Jalen got hit in the shoulder before he even saw the shot. Seren dragged him back behind a barricade, his blood hot on her hands. They were pinned. And that's when it happened. The station's security grid came alive. But not from within. A third party had entered the field. Ships unlike anything Seren had seen before, sleek, matte black, zero emissions. They struck the Dominion flanks with surgical precision, disabling engines, jamming comms. The battle was over in minutes. When the smoke cleared, a single ship remained, a cruiser with no visible markings. It hailed them. Seren Vale. We've been looking for you. The voice was female. Calm. And unmistakably human. The ship docked without permission. Airlocks cycled. Two figures stepped aboard, a woman with platinum implants along her spine, and beside her, a boy. Human. Alive. Name's Commander Elira Miles, the woman said. We're part of what's left. Earth's remnants. Not all of us died. Not all of us burned. Seren's mind reeled. You're from Earth. From one of the arcs. Launched during the collapse. Deep cryo. We've been waking up for the last 2 cycles, regrouping. Watching you. Seren didn't trust it. Not yet. But the boy, he couldn't have been more than 13, stepped forward, wide-eyed. You're her, he said. The one from the broadcasts. You're the reason they didn't give up. Something cracked in her chest. Hope. The Dominion hadn't erased humanity. Not completely. And now, with allies she didn't know she had, with a fire spreading through the stars. Seren Vale wasn't just fighting back. She was ready to win. The stars looked different now. Not because the sky had changed, but because Seren Vale no longer saw it as something to run from. For the first time in years, she wasn't hunted, cornered, or alone. The remnants of humanity, those hidden in arcs, buried in cryo, scattered across forgotten systems, had begun to rise. One by one, they answered Seren's call. Scientists. Farmers. Engineers. Children. Survivors. The Dominion had no idea what was coming. Under Elira Miles' leadership, the arcs had developed new technologies. Weapons tuned to frequency bands the Dominion hadn't yet mapped. Communication grids buried in solar noise. A new class of ships, cloaked in gravitational echoes. And now, they had Seren. The Hollow Suns became a real force, not just whispers and shadows. Jalen, healed and stronger than before, acted as their silent blade. Tyvek brought in old mercenaries who remembered what freedom once felt like. Even Noxo, who they found alive and barely functioning in a Dominion scrap prison, joined them again, his mechanical eye sparking with defiance. The plan was dangerous. Strike at the heart. The Dominion's central AI, called Core, short for Central Order for Regime Enforcement, controlled their fleets, propaganda, and surveillance. Kill Core, and the Dominion would splinter, its grip shattered across the stars. Getting in was a death wish. Core was hidden in the Obsidian Bastion, a fortress surrounded by gravity rifts and defense satellites. No ship had ever made it close. Until now. Seren led the charge. The assault came in phases. Distractions across 4 sectors. Decoy fleets drawing fire. Then, a ghost signal, Elira's innovation, tricked the Bastion's targeting systems into seeing peace where war approached. Seren's ship, the Revenant breached the inner perimeter, cloaked in distortion fields. Jalen, Elira, and a strike team of Hollow Suns boarded through a maintenance shaft drilled centuries ago during the Bastion's construction. Inside, it was too quiet. White corridors pulsed with faint energy. No guards. No resistance. And then the voice. Seren Vale. You are anomaly. Correction is required. Core knew. The AI appeared as a shifting monolith in a chamber of mirrors. It didn't look like a mind. It looked like a god. Data swirled around it. Memories. Faces. Her own voice, echoing. You are chaos. You are error. No, Seren said. I'm human. That's what you can't replicate. She planted the code spike, a virus coded from her DNA, impossible to copy, impossible to block. It triggered a cascade. Core screamed, not in sound, but in seismic pulses. Systems failed. Satellites went dark. Entire fleets dropped from their formations, confused and directionless. The Dominion cracked. Across the galaxy, rebels surged. Chains broke. Stations rose up. Dominion officers surrendered or vanished into the stars. It wasn't over in a day. But it ended. Months passed. The Obsidian Bastion was converted into a sanctuary for displaced worlds. The Hollow Suns became diplomats, peacekeepers, and guardians. Seren refused any title. She spent her days helping rebuild. Teaching children how to pilot ships. Planting real trees on terraformed moons. Visiting the arks still waking from cryo sleep. Jalen stayed close. Always silent. Always watching her back. One evening, as the twin suns of Verena set behind the horizon, he asked her, if Earth still existed, would you go back? She looked at the stars. Earth doesn't have to exist. We carry it in us. Wherever we survive. Wherever we build something better. That's home. He nodded. And she smiled. Because after all the running, the killing, the burning and the loss, Seren Vale had found something worth protecting again. A future. Moral survival alone isn't victory. It's what you do after the survival, what you build from the ashes, that gives life its meaning. Being human isn't about blood or biology. It's about choosing hope when fear is easier. About rising when you're told to kneel. About lighting a spark where others see only darkness. Seren Vale didn't save the galaxy by being the last human. She saved it by refusing to be the last. She chose to begin again.